Sea turtles don't have sex chromosomes. Not one. A hatchling's entire sex is decided by something as simple as the temperature of the sand around its egg. And in the 1970s, well-meaning conservationists trying to save these animals may have accidentally created a generation that was almost entirely one sex without realizing it for years. So how does temperature decide something as fundamental as sex? How many eggs does a turtle even lay? How long do they take to hatch? And why do these ocean animals crawl onto land to lay eggs in the first place? Let's dig in. Here's the mechanism. Sea turtle eggs incubate in a nest for around 45 to 70 days. But one narrow window matters most, the middle third of incubation. That's the exact period when the embryo's gonads are differentiating into ovaries or testes. If sand temperature spikes even for just a few days during that window, the sex is locked in permanently. Scientists call the tipping point the pivot temperature, generally around 29 degrees Celsius, the exact threshold where a nest produces a roughly even split of males and females. Below that, more males. Above it, more females. Push a few degrees past it in either direction and a nest can end up almost entirely one sex. No X or Y chromosome involved, just heat at exactly the right moment. Now here's where conservation went wrong. In the 1970s, thousands of sea turtle eggs were collected from beaches and moved into protected hatcheries to save them from predators and poachers. Nobody was tracking incubation temperature closely. Years later, scientists realized many of these hatcheries had been unintentionally running warm or cool enough to skew entire clutches toward a single sex, producing nests that were almost all male or almost all female without anyone knowing at the time. And it's not just history. This exact problem is happening again today, driven by climate change instead of hatchery mistakes. At Rain Island in Australia, the largest green turtle nesting site on Earth, researchers found that over 99% of young turtles being born there are now female. Part of why it's so extreme comes down to the sand itself. Rain Island is a coral cay covered in dense seabird guano, which darkens the surface and makes it absorb heat far faster than clean white sand, turning the beach into what's essentially an accidental feminizing oven. Sand temperatures there have been running above the pivot temperature since the early 1990s. Scientists have now identified the problem clearly, and conservation teams are actively responding, shading nests, relocating eggs to cooler sand, and even irrigating beaches to bring temperatures down. So yes, people have realized it. The question now is whether the fix can keep up with a warming planet. Let's zoom out. There are 7 species of sea turtle alive today. Females don't lay their eggs in water at all. They haul themselves onto beaches to nest on dry sand. That's because turtle eggs need to breathe. The shell allows oxygen to pass through, but only in air. Submerged underwater, the embryo inside would suffocate. Nesting females also time it carefully. Most come ashore at night, when cooler temperatures and darkness protect both the mother and the eggs from lethal daytime heat and predators. They favor nesting near the high tide line too, though rising sea levels are now making that instinct riskier, since it puts more nests at risk of flooding. Nesting season varies by species and region, but generally falls in the warmer months, spring through summer. A female will nest several times in one season, anywhere from 2 to 8 separate clutches, spaced about 2 weeks apart. Each clutch can hold 50 to 200 eggs depending on the species. Hawksbills lay the most, sometimes over 150 eggs in a single nest. Leatherbacks, despite being the largest turtles on Earth, lay some of the smallest clutches. Hatching success runs roughly 50 to 80% under natural conditions, meaning a large share of eggs never hatch at all, lost to flooding, predation, or unstable temperatures. Of the hatchlings that do dig out and race to the ocean, the odds get brutal fast. Roughly only 1 in 1,000 sea turtle hatchlings is estimated to survive to adulthood. For the ones that do make it, the reward is a long life. Depending on species, sea turtles can live 50 to 80 years or more in the wild, and they don't even reach sexual maturity until 25 to 35 years of age. A female sea turtle nesting today may be returning to the very same beach where she herself hatched decades earlier. Now, for some good news. Despite the sex ratio problem, sea turtle conservation has actually worked. The global green turtle population has increased by roughly 28% since the 1970s. a rebound significant enough that the species was recently reclassified from endangered to least concern. Legal protections, anti-poaching laws, and international harvest bans get the credit. Not every species or region is recovering equally. Some populations are still declining sharply, but overall, this is one of conservation's genuine long-term wins. A few more facts before we go. Male sea turtles never return to land after hatching, ever, for their entire lives. Only females come ashore and only to nest. Hatchlings use a temporary tooth-like structure called a caruncle to slice their way out of the shell. Then it falls off within days. And even though a nest may hold well over 100 eggs, they tend to hatch together within hours of each other, so the entire clutch can make its dash to the ocean as one group, which improves each individual hatchling's odds against predators simply through numbers. So next time you hear about a turtle nest being protected on a beach, you'll know there's a lot more happening underneath that sand than just safety. Temperature down there is quietly deciding the future sex ratio of an entire species. Which fact surprised you the most? Let me know in the comments and subscribe for more interesting facts like this. Until then, stay curious.